Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the content patch for the 5th of August 2013. My name is TotalBiscuit with today's gaming news and comment. Coming up in the show, SOE unveils Everquest Next. The game InFlux will not have a demo. The developers claim you should instead pirate it, then buy it. Saints Row 4 has finally been cleared for Australian release. You will find out what exactly was stopping it a little bit later on in the show. And a PSA to change your passwords, because it looks like some of Crytek's websites and services have been compromised. All this in the OC Remix track of the day is coming your way right about now. At their SOE Live event in Las Vegas, Sony Online Entertainment unveiled Everquest Next, which it promises will be a paradigm shift in MMOs, showing a reasonable amount of gameplay footage as well as an awful lot of concepts and explanations as to how the game actually works. The reception of the title seemed to be positive across the internet, with a lot of people rather excited about the possibility of something just a little bit different. The game will use a modified version of the Forgelight engine, which is also the engine that powers PlanetSide 2, and will feature voxel-based destruction. The title will also be split into two parts, Everquest Next and Everquest Landmark, which is essentially a sandbox building game which will allow fans to construct landmarks which could be featured in the game as well as sold over a player-based market. The title will allow you to claim a plot of land and essentially build whatever you want on it using resources and recipes that are found throughout the world itself. This title will be coming out before Everquest Next and would appear to indicate that an awful lot of the construction will be based outside of the game and then imported using the Player Studio. SOE claims that the same tools that are being used by the development team to construct the world are included in Everquest Next Landmark, although it's safe to say that they're not working with the same gaming restrictions, i.e. the fact that you have to gather recipes and materials in order to construct whatever it is you're trying to build. Alright, well, let's talk a little bit about the features and see exactly where the excitement is coming from. So, I mentioned earlier the idea of voxel-based destruction. So, the game does have the ability to demolish most stuff. It would appear that the main cities will not be subject to damage in such a way, but anything outside of that can be destroyed by sufficient force. The presentation demonstrated a large iron golem demolishing an entire building, as well as things like the ability to destroy bridges with powerful area of effect spells, and also to dig down into the earth and find many layers beneath it. This is the bit which interests me most. I mean, the destruction is kind of cool, don't get me wrong, but the world does auto-repair, because otherwise the whole thing would be completely leveled within about 5 minutes. So the destruction is nice, don't get me wrong, and it has some utility, but it's not what really interests me. The idea that you are able to dig into the earth and actually find multiple layers of gameplay under there, which is supposedly procedurally generated, alongside the obvious fact that there will be some set landmarks and things like that, is really exciting to me. It actually has this exploration idea really nailed down. Exploration just doesn't happen in MMOs after, say, the first few weeks. Once everything's been discovered and mapped out, there's really not an awful lot to say there, and it's a lot easier to map out worlds like that when everything is in the same place and it's static all the time. Now, obviously, your server will eventually get mapped out. It's not going to be consistently changing in terms of what's underneath the earth, but it will take a lot more time. I mean, you could basically, as far as I can tell in that game, be a cartographer and explore and make maps of areas that you discover. I mean, that is very, very cool indeed, let's be honest. In conjunction with that, which sounds a little bit pie in the sky, but we'll see if they can actually pull it off, is they're claiming that the game has a lot of emergent AI, as in you don't have mobs just kind of wandering backwards and forwards in a predefined patrol pattern waiting for you to kill them. Stuff is going to happen within the world. They gave an example of going out into the woods because a quest has been generated by a town to go and eliminate some goblins in an area. However, doing so may end up pissing off the Goblin King, which can in fact result in more goblins coming in, possibly even raising the town entirely. Yeah? That's what they're suggesting. This goes a step beyond the Guild Wars 2 dynamic event systems, which are predefined events that are kind of on a chain that go backwards and forwards. Yeah, it's very much a tug-of-war system in that respect. In this case, what they're suggesting is that there are entities within the world that will have the ability to make some kind of basic decisions which will affect that world, and what you do also causes certain things to happen. So if you piss off the Goblin King too much, he builds an army, he allies with other creatures, and he directly goes and invades an area of the world. And when they do that, they don't stop, yeah? If you don't stop them, they're just going to keep rampaging across the world. That's what they're suggesting there. Another example that was given in the presentation is, alright, so you've been set with building a town, right? And you do various quests to help build the town is eventually built up and things like that, but eventually you end up pissing off a local band of orcs, the orcs attack you, you are forced to abandon your mining operations in that area and defend, which as a result causes like gnolls to overrun the mines and things like that. If they could pull that off, then that sounds amazing, yeah? That sounds absolutely incredible. The fact that you just don't really know what's going to happen. They had this idea that the game would be very much based on emergent gameplay. Yeah? They wanted things to happen that were unexpected rather than scripted, and they wanted the world to be a real living world that reacted to you. They also wanted each server to be different in that respect. So something can happen on one server, not happen on another, and they're actually okay with that. That surprises me greatly, because most games have tried to avoid that entirely because they want to give everyone the same experience. It seems like SOE is willing to toss that idea out the window and say, no, actually, it's okay if players get different experiences, and we feel that's more positive than it is negative. And I could not agree more, I might add, with that particular idea. I think the whole everyone gets to see the content thing is what really hurt World of Warcraft, and it honestly leads you away from innovation and into a realm of pre-scripted nonsense and static scenery and events, which I'm definitely not a fan of there. Again, if they can pull that off, that's kind of incredible. They also showed the actual combat and the movement, which looks pretty fluid. They had an emphasis on being able to move over areas much more fluidly than in other games, so there's a little bit of parkour in there. It automatically vaults small obstacles, for instance. It gives you a number of different movement modes. You could get this pair of boots that would allow you to float. One of the racers can do this gigantic leap and things like that. The classes are different. They mentioned that there was a multi-classing system where you collect multiple classes throughout the game and you basically customize the class to your liking. It seems like an expansion of the Guild Wars 2 weapon-based system. They said that depending on the type of weapon you had, that would affect your skills. And then they went a stage further than that and said, right, well, also you can customize your class as well. So you can basically make your own class throughout the game. That is an exciting idea as well. I think that it's important to allow players to change their minds later on without having to roll up an entirely new character, right? They play the game and they realize, oh, you know what? This class really wasn't for me. And if they have the ability to customize that class afterwards, then they can actually eliminate that without having to roll up a new character. I think that's a really positive change. It does look really interesting. Like, it looks like something I would possibly play. Admittedly, I say that a lot and then realize, oh yeah, MMOs, I don't actually have the time for that. I do like the idea that they're embracing the sort of Minecraft-ish system of gathering stuff to build things is really interesting, and lots of people like that. That's good. That's very, very good. I think, arguably, that's better than just giving people a toolbox and saying, build whatever. I think people are more interested in actually gathering those materials and finding things in order to do that. There's a certain amount of satisfaction that can be gained from building something with materials that you yourself have worked to gather. They also link that in with a player market, which allows you to earn real money by selling parts. I mean, you could make this amazing tower, for instance, that someone then incorporates into a castle of theirs, and they then sell the castle, but you get royalties based on how many people buy the castle and how much of the castle is actually your work. So you can take other people's work, but they're rewarded fairly for it. And this is all real money stuff as well. So it looks like they're moving towards a monetization model, which is based on the notion that players will create stuff and then kind of sell it. So a little bit Second Life in there. Seems like they're drawing influences from a lot of different games and trying to put it together into a cohesive whole, which is exactly what MMOs have been doing for a very long time. World of Warcraft did that, Guild Wars 2 did that, you know, it's been going on. It's an iterative genre, and rightfully so, because quite frankly, it's the most expensive one to make. But it looks really interesting, actually. I'm intrigued. I want to see how this all works out. I don't want to get my hopes up too much, because, hey, it's MMOs, but I'm glad to see that one dev is just turning around and saying, you know what, that's enough, yeah? Enough of the basic stuff, enough of the World of Warcraft style of doing things. Let's move on from that because everyone's getting tired of it, and they really are. You just need to look at the numbers for every game, including World of Warcraft, which is dropping off, to see people don't care about that style of game anymore. So hopefully it works out. We will see. It is extremely ambitious. We will see. Impromptu Games have released their first commercial title by the name of InFlux, which is a rather relaxing puzzler, as they describe it, with reasonably high-fidelity graphics by the looks of it. However, the difference being that they did not release a demo for this game. Instead, on their website, they actually linked directly to the Pirate Bay, where a torrented full version of the game is available. Now, initially it was reported that Impromptu were responsible for the upload themselves. However, this has since been confirmed to be not the case. However, Joe Wintergreen, the head of the company, decided to post a comment on the InFlux download, which stated that, "I just wanted to ask you all to please consider buying InFlux if you enjoyed playing it and have the money. We're not a big company, this is our first commercial PC game, and would really appreciate your support, especially me. I seriously have no idea how I'm paying rent this month." You can currently get the game from GOG, Amazon, or the Humble store via influxgame.com for $10. You can also tip if you want on Humble. If you're not able to buy it for whatever reason, I'd still appreciate your feedback on the game. The website itself also states their stance on piracy, claiming there is no DRM. DRM is obviously stupid, it says, so all software these days pretty much works on the Honor system anyway. We would really appreciate your support, can't make more games without it. So this is certainly not the first instance of this happening. The previous instances, Hotline Miami, as well as Anodyne, are good examples. There was also a version of No Time to Explain uploaded to torrent sites, which actually had all of the characters wearing pirate hats. This was uploaded by the devs themselves, as you might imagine. And it seems like piracy is becoming some kind of guerrilla marketing campaign for an awful lot of these companies. My concern is, of course, that once the novelty wears off, this probably won't help them all that much. In linking directly to a torrent instead of saying, oh, well, you know, you could just buy it. It's like, no, here, look, there's a torrented version. You can get the whole thing and please kind of pay us afterwards. It's probably going to have diminishing returns in the long run if a lot of companies keep doing that. It is very easy to download that pirated version. It's also very easy just, you know, not to pay them. I know it makes you feel better if you do, but a lot of people will come up with an excuse. What if I beat the game? It's like, oh, right, well, you know, I didn't enjoy this bit, so I don't think it's worth paying for. Trust me, a long time ago, I used to pirate games. I must have been like 10 years old at the time. And I always said to myself, with burned disc in hand, yeah, I'll totally pay for it later when I've got the money, and then I just didn't, you know? It's very easy to make them an excuse not to. I think right now, if it doesn't happen that frequently, then it's still newsworthy, and as a direct result, it actually does bring attention to the game, right? I didn't know about InFlux before this, so as a result, one would think that this will help them, but if every indie decides to turn around and do this, it won't. It really, really will not. I also don't necessarily agree that software is sold on the Honor system these days. Really, no, it's not. Anything that has a multiplayer client and service attached to it is most likely much harder to pirate. Anything that relies on a CD key for that with authentication server-side, much harder to pirate. And more to the point, the harder a game is to pirate and get working, the less likely people are to actually do it, because it's much easier just to buy it on Steam these days. So I do heartily disagree with the idea that DRM is completely ineffective. It isn't. The problem is that getting it to the degree where it is effective, even in some way, slowing down pirates or just making it too much of a pain in the ass to do, takes it to the point where it's actually affecting legitimate customers more often than not, more than it is the pirates. And that's the problem I personally have with it. It's not that it doesn't work. It's that more often than not, it causes more legitimate problems for the legitimate consumer, which is what I am personally concerned with, yeah? If pirates aren't going to buy your game regardless, then stop treating them like a market force. Stop even catering or even paying attention to them whatsoever. Focus all of your time on a good user experience, and you'll generally find that more people buy your game. It's really that simple. Why the hell should I, a legitimate customer, suffer because some other guy decided to take it for free? That's the attitude that should be adopted, quite frankly. But hey, InFlux got on this show, so I guess the publicity worked in this case, so there you go. You can check out the game over at influxgame.com. Good news, Australia! Saints Row 4 has been finally cleared for release in your country, and we also have details as to exactly why it wasn't allowed in before. A modified version of Saints Row 4 has in fact been classified as MA15+, which is a rather strange rating to have, to say the least, considering there is now an R18+ rating. But now, the removal of a single side mission, it would seem, was enough to actually get the numbers down to a 15+ rating. What was the side mission, you might ask? Well, apparently the mission involved the retrieval of alien narcotics which improved certain superpowers temporarily within the game. The quote goes something along the lines of this: to achieve this rating, one loyalty mission, which featured the character Shondi, has been removed. This mission has been widely reported on and contains the use of alien narcotics to obtain certain superpowers. The mission represents 20 minutes of gameplay. Publisher Deep Silver claims this will have no impact on the superpowers or the experience that players will get from Saints Row 4, and of course the alien probe gun has been removed as well from this particular version. Interestingly enough, according to Deep Silver, the alien probe weapon will be available as part of a DLC package, which is intriguing to say the least. One assumes it's okay when you sell it for DLC, but not when it comes in the game itself. Oh, Jesus. Talk about how stupid this rating system is. This is a game whereby you can very easily mass murder infinite numbers of innocent civilians, and yet it was the alien narcotics, the imaginary drugs. It's the imaginary drugs in the imaginary game which power the imaginary superpowers and give you an imaginary benefit. Those were the straws that broke the camel's back. Are you serious? For the love of God, it's Pac-Man. It quite literally is Pac-Man. You eat alien pills in order to gain superpowers. It's the same freaking thing, but they're okay with the mass murder of virtual civilians. They're just not okay with the consumption of virtual alien drugs, which allow you to fly. Hey, what are you on? I have to ask which alien drugs the Australian Classification Board has clearly been chowing down on at this point in order to reach that conclusion. You are out of your minds. Your classification criteria is clearly bonkers and needs to be rewritten. I think that is abundantly clear at this point. And finally, this is a quick PSA on the subject of Crytek-based websites. It would appear that emails are going out to certain users claiming that there has been suspicious activity detected in numerous Crytek-related websites, and as a direct result, these websites have been taken offline. These sites include Crytek.com, myCryEngine.com, CryDev.net, myCrysis.com. However, at the time of recording, GFace Crisis and Warface.com are all still online. The recommendation, as always, with any of these circumstances is to change your password just to make sure that your information has not been compromised. Do not use the same password for multiple sites, folks, and please, if you have any trouble whatsoever actually remembering your stuff, then use a service like KeepPass or LastPass, which is very useful indeed for keeping track of your various passwords. Okay, folks, that is me done for the day. Thank you very much for watching the content patch, but before I go, I'd like to give you the OC Remix track of the day. A legendary game indeed is the one that they call Myst. This is a particular track by the name of Unraveling the Mystery, and it's a medley inspired by the tracks Darkness, Descent, and Mist Island, originally composed by Robin Miller. The remixer is DarkMessenger, and it actually has quite the pace to it, which is not what you'd necessarily expect from a remix of stuff like Myst. As always, you can download the track in the description below this video, and you can do so for free. A quick reminder, by the way, if you haven't already realized, we have moved the Game Station podcast over to youtube.com/Polaris, and it is now called the Co-Optional Podcast. 2 episodes of it are currently out, one with James Portnow of the one and only Extra Credits, and the other with John Tron. So I'd recommend you check those out if you've missed them on youtube.com/Polaris. Thank you very much for watching, folks. I'll see you next time.